Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. Hi, Barry. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Yourself?
I'm very good, thank you.
Good.
So, I was thinking after our conversation last week, we were talking about enabling and is it love or is it enabling? And we talked a lot about, when we're in relationships with, say somebody with an addiction or something like that, or especially when it comes to the parent-child relationship, when there's some really unhealthy behavior. But what really came out of that conversation for me, and a couple of people mentioned it and talked about it, was the whole thing about unconditional love. And I thought that'd be a great topic for us to talk about today.
Indeed, a good topic.
Yes, it is, exactly. And, there is this misconception around unconditional love that it basically means I'll love you no matter what, even if you run me over with a with a truck.
Yeah.
And I think that it's worth just talking about what you can absolutely have unconditional love for somebody else, but still maintain healthy boundaries. And I think that's where people get mixed up. They just think that, especially marriage vows, like through what's the illness and health, and you can tell I've never been married. Well, I have been married. I've forgotten that bit of the vows. What is it? Through thick and thin, through health and sickness,
Yes.
all that stuff.
And I've never been married. I remember the vows too.
Well, actually, I have been married. I mean, more than once, actually. One was
But those vows have a whole other conversation we can have about those anyway. So
That's right. That is a good one. So,
mhm.
So, and when I mentioned this topic to you, you brought up something really interesting, and you said, "Can unconditional love exist within romantic relationships?" So,
Right.
I'd love to hear what you think about that. I've certainly got thoughts about it, but
Oh,
let's.
I'm sure you
As
do, as
always.
do I. Yes. Well,
So, let's
so
start with you, Barry. What do you
certainly.
mean by that?
Well, let me put this in context of like a spectrum of what love really means. There's in the Greek, there's like 5 different words that mean love, and one of them is romantic love, one's sexual love, one's possessive, one's familial love, one's brotherly love, and there's also unconditional love. So there's lots of ways of describing love. And the term unconditional love for me is always meant like loving from a spiritual or godlike place, meaning that you love with such boundarylessness that everything's okay the way it is. It's almost like being passive in a way, because it's almost looking at life and saying whatever happens happens, it's all fine, which for me doesn't feel very functional. So I've looked at unconditional love to have it needs it needs boundaries in a way, because it's because to me unconditional love is so boundaryless, which in relationship is not a healthy thing. As well, we talked about boundaries before. So when I talk about romantic love, it isn't necessarily a conditional love, which is the opposite of unconditional, but it does have a sense of requirement in a sense.
Yeah.
Does
So
that, if that
interesting.
makes sense?
It does, but it's so interesting. We have a very different view of unconditional love.
Great.
Yeah, because I actually do think that unconditional love has boundaries in it.
Okay.
What it does, for what unconditional love means to me is 100%. It's a spiritual love where you see the spiritual essence of the other person. You see their what we call psychological innocence. That on a spiritual level, they are just this sort of magnificent being equal to you on every level. But when they come into this world in the human form, we can still love them. We can love their essence. We can
Mm-hmm.
love who they are, their spiritual essence. And we can actually continue to love them even when they're doing bad things. And even when they are, you know, when I say bad things, even when they're doing actions that may hurt themselves or hurt me or hurt others or hurt us, I think you can still love them. But so you don't have to judge them, you don't have to hate them, you don't have to
Okay.
reject them, you don't have to tear them down. You can still love them, but you have a healthy boundary. And just because when I work a lot with people that have that addictive love, which is not unconditional love, it's that
Right.
addictive, codependent love,
Yeah.
I'll often they'll say, "But I love my partner. I can't leave them. I love them," and they often will try and find things to hate about the person so they can love.
Hmm.
They will pick fault with them so they can leave them. And I'll say, you know what, you can leave with love. You can actually leave with love. You can say, I love this person, but love is not enough to make a relationship work. So
Say
you
that
can
again. Say it last
love
part again.
the last part of the get. Love is not enough to make a relationship work. So
Thank you.
you could
Exactly. Needs to be
continue
heard
to say that again.
Say that needs to be heard by people.
No,
That's it.
absolutely. And I had to hear that for myself. I was told that. I didn't make that up. I will credit Al Luddington, my fabulous therapist, for giving me that comment because I was so in love with my ex. I kept staying and staying and staying because I
Yeah.
thought, well, I love them. And then when he said love is not enough to make a relationship work, I was like, oh my God. So I almost can take love out of the equation because love was keeping me stuck in an unhealthy relationship. So when I took that out of the equation, I thought, well, is there enough here to make this relationship work? And there wasn't.
Hmm.
There wasn't respect. There wasn't honesty. There wasn't empathy. There wasn't all the other qualities that you need in a relationship. And that's when I was able to say, okay, I can still love and I can leave. So that to me is a form of unconditional love. I think we hear conditions as meaning rules, but I think they're just healthy boundaries.
So this is where I have an interesting feeling about it too. So yeah, I love this conversation because it's so like we're dancing around in the way the conversation about this. The thing for me, because yes, to me, unconditional love means the opposite of conditional love. It means love without conditions, meaning you love regardless of whatever's happening, whatever's going on. And for me, I would say that in living in the world, we can be unconditionally loving everybody on the planet because that's kind of what we're made. We are loving beings, so to speak. I mean, from a spiritual philosophy. When we get to be in relationship with people as friends or as family or as partners, then for me it's a different flavor of love or a different layer upon on top of that. So it could be unconditional love going for everybody, and then on top of that, for like a romantic partner, there's romantic love and sexual connection, those things as well. And on top of that, like a layer cake in a way.
Yeah,
And so, in that sense, I guess I do understand unconditional love works in a relationship. However, for me, because I look at unconditional love as being very detached, my feeling
mm,
that I want to be attached to my partner, not in a negative way, but like this is my partner who I'm committed to, that I'm staying with, that I'm in relationship with. Which, if it was unconditional, that wouldn't exist. At least the way I'm thinking of it. And that may be just my logic doing weird things.
yeah. That's so interesting. When you said something about unconditional love was almost like a distant love. What did you say? There was like a distance to it. That's fascinating because I think unconditional love is the glue that keeps us together. It keeps
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, well, unconditional love to me is that when we talk about the oneness, that we're all one.
Hmm.
So to me, it's that connection, that unconditional love of I love you even though. So to me, it's a very deep, connected love. But just because we have that deep, connected love doesn't mean we have to be in relationship with somebody, and meaning that we have to be intimate with them, live with them, stay in a connected relationship with them. It's yeah, it's fascinating. It's a
Is it? Yeah, because the things for me again is the idea of, because I'm being on spiritual path for many years, having the unconditional love viewpoint of the world is having compassion, and compassion comes into it too, for anybody on the planet that's going through any sort of experience. And it's the challenge because having unconditional love for those people who are on opposing sides, opposing views, opposing policies, whatever that is for me where a lot of the times the work is, because I start to find myself trying to get out of the againstness or judgment about those things. So I look at unconditional love as being the solution in a way to that. But for me, in romantic love, it is that commitment to a person. And yes, at some point there may not be function of being together because there's too much pain or stuff in the way, or abuse or whatever it is that doesn't make romantic love work in that relationship. But for me, the unconditional love piece is a much more sort of universal love, so to
Mm.
speak. You know,
Yeah. No, I think, well, I'm applying it to more personal things in my situation. Like,
right?
I had a conversation with my ex-husband yesterday, and we might not have agreed or seen the world in a certain way, but I found myself having an awful lot of unconditional love towards him.
Hmm.
I mean, I genuinely did. Even though there was differences, and I could have gone into judgment, and I could have done, but I could really, I don't know, there was something just so very sort of, maybe I was just feeling very tender, and I could see the struggle, I could see the pain, I could see that he was really doing the best he could, and yeah, I really had unconditional love for him. Now, do I
Yeah,
want to be in a relationship with him? Absolutely not. Do I
right.
back there? No way.
Yeah,
But I did have unconditional love for him, because and I know that because I had compassion, even though there was things being said that I would not have agreed with or don't
right.
see eye to eye with, but there was this softness in how I felt towards him, compassion,
So my
love.
question for you then is, was that loving present when you were in relationship with him back then? Was it
I
love at that point?
um Very definitely. But there was other layers of love too. There was the possessive love, the sexual love,
Mhm.
whatever love. There was all those as well. But
Yeah,
it doesn't mean just because I had that unconditional love that I wasn't also in judgment at times. Most certainly was. Um,
yeah,
it's much easier when you're standing back to have less judgment.
of
Um,
course. Yes.
um, yeah, it's just, and I think maturity, I think we grow up, we have, I think that's the other thing we have in our romantic relationships. I think we have very high expectations of who our partner should be, and it's only on reflection we realize that, gosh, we you know we I do think a little bit more of this unconditional love within the relationship is important within a romantic relationship. Being able to listen deeply with curiosity as opposed to judgment.
Yeah, yes, I agree. I mean, because in a romantic relationship, I'm looking at the context of, well, for me, romantic relationship is the highest level of relationship I would have in my life, basically, because the closest person to me, obviously, most people would think that. So it shouldn't, it wouldn't necessarily supersede or overtake unconditional love, but it would definitely add to, as we talked about. The thing, I guess, for me, and I understand, I know this, is that when I'm in a relationship, definitely the love um, is more valuable, more expansive than anybody judgment or resentment might show up. The love is bigger than that sort of thing. So it can absorb that, so to speak. So in that sense, unconditional love works. And yes, the love without conditions in romantic relationship is great. I guess I look at the term unconditional love as being a much more of a universal flavor. And in a romantic relationship, because the romantic relationship is a much more of an investment and commitment and partnership, there's more to it than just romantic unconditional love. And that's the thing I guess I get in that a romantic relationship is not just unconditional love. It's that plus.
Yeah,
So it does apply in that way, yes.
yeah. Well, and the other thing is, reverberating again.
Hmm.
Um, I was what we say unconditional love. Now,
Right.
unconditional love to me is when we go, oops, oh, that, yeah, you broke that condition. I don't love you anymore. So it's the withdrawing of love. It's the giving and withdrawing, which can be, that push pull, that dynamic that can sometimes happen. And sometimes we grow up with that. We feel it from our parents. We feel that they don't love us unconditionally. They love us when we're being good and doing what they tell us to do, and things like that. And I think that, you know, certainly we've evolved, and I think we've been taught how to communicate with our children that we love them unconditionally, but that does not mean, like, our love will never stop. It doesn't
Hmm.
get drawn because they've upset us or done something. So the love is consistent, but the relationship has conditions. So the relationship, to stay in relationship with somebody, there has to be conditions of love, respect, kindness, empathy, all those things that, but that's, to me, that's the relationship that has these conditions, not
Mhm.
love. Love
Love.
is not something that you go in and out of, because depending on what's happening, in the relationship.
That I can get behind, because there is definitely the sense in a way that in that context for me, like unconditional love is kind of like the lubrication that makes the relationship smooth and workable. And then there's conditions that make it function even better.
Yeah,
Because the thing is, yes, there are definitely things that, because we talk about, for example, green flags and deal breaks and everything else, which are the conditions that we put on a relationship. So definitely there's conditional love and unconditional love at the same time, really, in this context.
yeah. Or
Yeah,
like I
it's
said, I like to separate it out in unconditional love, meaning love is consistent and it's there through thick and thin.
mhm,
And because I personally feel that love is, when we love somebody, there's almost like a soul contract we have. We if we have profound love for another human being, it doesn't really matter what's going on. Like I have a sister that lost her daughter tragically, and was so hurt for a while there. She just retreated from everybody, and
mhm,
we weren't really having a relationship. And in the sense of, the classic sense of a relationship, of communicating and talking and everything, there was a very dry period. But my love for her never waned, and I would dream about her. We'd hug, and I just absolutely loved her. But I just knew there was a period of time in this lifetime, in this physical world that we live in, where for whatever reason that sort of connection was halted for a while. But
mhm.
the love never ever diminished. It stayed there, and when we picked it up again, it was probably even stronger than it had ever been. And we have a
Mhm.
beautiful relationship now where we communicate very openly our love for each other. So
It's
you said it was the lubrication. I think it's the glue.
hey, my lubrication, your glue. It's the same, But the thing I was going to say with just to that point is that I know I definitely have friendships that we'll see each other once in a blue moon, but we sort of pick up where we left off, sort of thing. It's almost like it goes on hold when we disappear for each other, then it resumes when we get together again. And in a way, that is unconditional, because it's like we know we love each other regardless. And in the piece in between, our thoughts of that person stay loving. It doesn't like we go switch it off and they're gone away.
Yeah.
So definitely there are friendships and connections I have that I love deeply. And there's something about maturity. I'm an ex-girlfriend. I see once in a blue moon. We cross paths very rarely, but once we do see each other, I love her dearly, but I have no desire to be romantic with her, and
Mm,
not and her with me. And so it definitely is transcended romantic love. So maybe it is the unconditional love term in sense, because in a way it's like, okay, we're being semantic about this because it is unconditional. So it is unconditional loving. So that conversation and how to understand it works through all of our relationships in different ways. It's only us that creates conditions for what the relationships are going to be like, whether it's romantic or any sort of relationship. So
mhm.
we have to choose for ourselves where we invest our energy of love in certain relationships different ways, because that's a real powerful place to play.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking back to um, a client I had who was married to a very severe alcoholic, and she loved him dearly. I mean, really, really loved him. I think he was a
Yeah.
wonderful human being. He was a wonderful father, and she ended up divorcing him. But while she was still very much in love with him, and he unfortunately passed away from his alcoholism. It was very
Mhm.
serious. It was not, they were there at his bedside. Um, so she never ever stopped loving him and never stopped being there. She just knew that it was not healthy to have, for her life, for her to have her sons living all together with him. But they
Mhm.
continued to love him. They continued to show their love and respect for him, but they had a very clear boundary.
Yeah.
That to me is a beautiful unconditional love. At the same time, taking care of yourself and your children, who are your responsibility.
Yeah. That's to be transparent. I definitely have certain friendships that I withdrew my love from, that I definitely didn't stay connected to.
Hmm.
So something about that with relationship, it's like I found people that I was friends with at some point, and to my perception, again, to my perception, they change so much, I can no longer love them in any way, shape, or form.
Mhm.
And so I'm basically just disconnected from them completely. So just to say, as a spiritual person, I don't have unconditional love for everybody, it seems, because I have certain people I black holed, that I've just basically dropped,
Oh, Barry, I am so disappointed in you. I can't believe that you do not have unconditional love for a person on
I,
the
no, I just
planet.
like,
Me too. I
yeah,
I definitely have some people that I cannot find unconditional love for. I think
right.
that's permissible.
So it's interesting because because I said at the beginning about being a spiritual person, having a control love for everyone on the planet. I have to edit that now because I realize there are certain people who, because I've had connection with them, I have no
Yeah,
desire to be in love of any way, shape, or form with,
yeah.
and that's okay. That's part of the journey of being human in this experience. Is that we definitely, trying to be perfect at any of this stuff is always like it's a fallacy.
Mhm.
So just saying that, I want to make sure it clear the air is that we do have people in our lives. I do, and you do clearly as well. That we just don't have any form of love, no matter what sort of love it is for that person. We
Yeah.
just like, you know what, done.
Yeah, I'm just like, that's not my person. That's not somebody I can be. And again, it doesn't mean you have to hate them, but
No.
I'm not, there are spiritual teachers out there that will sort of, look at certain world leaders we might have that we might judge as dictators or violent or whatever. And they will find the unconditional love for them, for that person that's doing some pretty horrific, horrendous things on the world stage.
Hmm.
I'm not going to take it that far. I, I've got enough with the people in
Yeah.
my life, in my community, in my orbit that I would like to keep finding the unconditional love for them, to find the
Right.
psychological innocence. But I'm not going to be Mother Teresa. I'm not going to take it like that far to love certain
Right.
politicians that I might not see eye to eye with. I'm just
Absolutely.
going to accept them for who they are and just not sort of pay too much attention to them. But I think what we're really saying here is it's this unconditional love concept of unconditional love. Sometimes people can misunderstand what is meant by it, in the sense that they will suffer abuse, they will fall into either that codependent or addictive love, where
Hmm.
they feel that and that's what the other thing I use. Sometimes people will say to me, well, I don't want to be judgmental, and I said, let's take that word judgment out of it. You can
Right.
assess. I love the word assess. You can assess whether this relationship is kind, respectful. It adds to your life, adds to both of your life. You can make an assessment. So it's not that hard judgment. I'm a judgmental person, and this person's not worth my love. It's not that. You can assess, like, I can love this person, but as I said before, love is not enough. I can assess whether there's enough other qualities in this relationship to keep the relationship going.
Right. That is key. That's the thing. Is for me, in a sense, love is something we are making a choice about, and choosing into love with certain people, with everybody, with our romantic partners, all those things. It requires us to choose that, and that's the thing. Is that when babies are born, as far as I remember, as far as I'm aware of it, they're born with unconditional love as their sort of MOs. That's their baseline of what they come from.
Mhm.
But as we grow up, we tend to become more selective about who we give our love to and who we receive love from.
Mhm.
So, and there's nothing right or wrong about that. It's just a choice about each person's life. So when we choose to love somebody more and somebody less, that's simply our ability or choice to love them. In reality, it doesn't actually make any impact on those people. They receive love however they want to, and they love themselves the same way. So this conversation about unconditional love, well, it's funny because I've been talking this year. My download since New Year's Eve is about, I'm talking about self love this year. Well, really, what self love is about is that we love ourselves unconditionally, and we are caring about who we are, independent of who out there does or doesn't love us. So in a
Abs-
relationship, say again.
I said, absolutely.
So that makes this whole thing about unconditional love an interesting conversation, because so many people, unfortunately, don't love themselves unconditionally. They have conditions about themselves: when they're the right weight, when they're the right partner, when they don't have money in the bank. All these rules that people make up, and I've done it myself,
Mhm.
that make love an achievement level. Then when we achieve these things, then we can love ourselves. Whereas unconditional love is we love ourselves independent of what's happening around us. And these happens what's happening to us. So
Exactly.
that I would say is a homework assignment to anybody watching this or listening to this, that learning how to be unconditionally loving, first of all, with the one in the mirror, is where the real work is.
And that does extend, and I completely agree with you. I mean, we and often one of the things that we don't, our love for ourselves is based on that external validation of that
Mhm.
external, I'm lovable because so and so loves me. Whereas I completely agree with you that we're made of love. I mean, that's what we are. We are made of love. I mean, that's our essence. Our spiritual essence is love, peace, joy, kindness. That is our essence of who we are. And yes, we grow up, we experience hurt and pain and abandonment and rejection, and then we build walls, and then we build more of this conditional love and things. But again, if we can maintain that we are made of love, we are made of this beautiful feeling that is everybody's. We all have it within us. We don't need to seek it from the outside in. It's like being in a it's like having a well within us, that well-being. It's that well of love, and it's always there. And it's my children will say sometimes, why are you so loving? And I'm like, why wouldn't I be? I just love
Yeah,
this feeling of love. It's not based on I love you if. It's just such a beautiful space to live in, this loving feeling. um,
absolutely.
but it doesn't mean, again, that I will allow somebody to abuse me or take advantage of me,
Yeah.
um, or any of that. And it doesn't mean I'll stop loving you if you do that to me. Like, children, sometimes I mean, thank God my children are older and they're nothing but pure love and joy and hugs and kisses and respect and kindness. But there's a period of time when they're younger where you do have challenges, but we never withdraw our love. And I don't know about you, but I know for me growing up, that was something that my mother did to control us, to get
Mhm.
us to do what we wanted, was to completely freeze us out. And her disdain for you felt so, and especially growing up with a single parent, her withdrawal of love was like death,
It was
because
catastrophic.
because there was nobody else to get love from. There wasn't a father figure to get love from. So that sort of control that she exerted over me, I'll just talk for myself, was crippling when that love was withdrawn and held back. And she could hold it back for a long time. When she was upset or wanted to punish you, she could hold on to it for a very long time. And that's not unconditional love. That is conditional
Yeah.
love. I will love you if you do this and make me feel a certain way. And that is, I think, especially in parenting, is a very unhealthy love.
Yeah. On that note, looking back at my own parents and my own upbringing, I think in a way, my best example probably was my mother. She was probably the most honest example of what loving was, that was without judgment or evaluation. My dad was much more, and it's interesting because, we're growing up in an English family, reserved, everything else. My dad definitely wasn't the most emotive person on the planet by any means. And he had this very stoic way of being. But I also noticed it wasn't about the love that I needed from him. For me, it was about the approval. And that's the whole thing we took another conversation about men needing approval,
Mhm.
is that the loving I had tied to approval. So it's like, if you approve of me, it must mean you love me. That was the wiring I grew up with.
Mm.
So I had this close association that love couldn't be unconditional because it needed to have approval tied to it to make it valuable.
Wow. Ooh, this is another.
So
That
I
is.
know.
Okay, that might be next
Drop
week.
the seed on that one.
We'll put a pin in it. Okay, well, I think we've reached the end. I could keep going on this conversation.
Yes,
It's a
indeed.
fascinating one. Love it. I love it. How to
Hmm.
stay loving and within your relationships and have healthy boundaries. So, okay, well, thank you, everybody. We will see you again next week. I hope you enjoyed this little conversation we had, and let us know what you want to
Please
hear
do.
more of.
Yes, and we'll be talking a bit further. We've got more to talk about, it seems.
All right, thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful week,
Take care.
and you too, Barry. Bye bye.
We trust you enjoyed this episode and invite you to share this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe to our Relationship Mastery podcast. That way you'll get each new episode fresh and shiny as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well. So go ahead and enter your questions and comments at relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.